The Grand War Beast Tournament was the most anticipated event in the galaxy. It was a spectacle where warriors from different planets brought their most fearsome creatures to battle for dominance. The arena was massive, stretching miles wide, reinforced with energy barriers to contain the deadliest beings the galaxy had to offer. Thousands of spectators from various species filled the colossal stadium, cheering and placing bets on which monster would survive. The event was already in full swing when the human delegation arrived. Unlike the other warriors who brought massive, genetically enhanced war beasts, the humans carried small cages, barely large enough to hold a grown Xalvoran's claw. The aliens watched in confusion as the humans wheeled their cages forward. Inside, there were creatures that looked nothing like the galaxy's war beasts. A tall, reptilian Itar warrior sneered, pointing a clawed finger at the humans. "Is this a joke? Where are your real beasts?" The humans smiled, calm and confident. One of them, a woman with a military uniform, simply tapped on one of the cages. A deep, unsettling growl echoed through the arena, sending a shiver down the spines of those who could hear it. A Xalvoran champion, whose war beast had just torn apart a bio-enhanced Titan hound, stepped forward. "Enough games. Release your pets, if you dare." The audience erupted in laughter. Surely, these small creatures were nothing compared to the titanic monstrosities that had already battled. The match began. The humans pressed a button, and the cage doors slid open. The creatures inside moved slowly at first, stepping onto the battlefield. The first was a small, black-furred animal, walking on 4 legs, its yellow eyes glowing in the dim arena lights. The second was larger, its muscular body covered in a mix of fur and scales, moving with a strange, calculated grace. The third, a feathered reptilian beast, let out a screech that sent chills through the audience. The laughter faded. Across the arena, the Xalvoran war beast, a 20-foot-tall nightmare with 6 limbs and bone-crushing fangs, let out a roar and charged at the first Earth creature. The battle was supposed to end instantly. One swipe, one bite, and the tiny thing would be nothing more than a stain on the ground. But something happened that no one expected. The black-furred beast dodged, not just stepped aside, but vanished and reappeared behind the massive war beast with impossible speed. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The war beast turned, confused, then swiped again. Another miss. The human creature moved faster than anything the arena had ever seen. Then it attacked. It didn't go for a slow fight. It went straight for the throat. With a single powerful leap, it latched onto the war beast's neck, its claws digging deep into flesh. The war beast screeched, thrashing violently, but the small creature held on, its jaws clamping tighter. Blood sprayed across the ground. Silence. The Xalvoran champion stood frozen as his prized war beast collapsed, its body twitching before going still. Dead. The crowd was in shock. A creature barely the size of a child had just taken down a monster bred for war. Before anyone could react, the other 2 Earth creatures moved. The feathered reptile let out another chilling screech, its eyes locking onto a 6-legged Cargathian warhound. The hound, sensing danger, growled and charged. It was a mistake. The human beast dodged midair, twisting its body in ways that should have been impossible, then landed on the warhound's back. A single slash of its claws severed the beast's spine. The warhound collapsed without a sound. The final creature, the largest of the 3, stood tall, its glowing eyes fixed on the biggest remaining war beast in the arena, a genetically enhanced juggernaut. A monster designed to withstand nuclear blasts, roared as it charged. The human creature simply lowered itself, muscles tensing. Then it leaped, not just jumped, but soared through the air like a bullet, landing directly on the juggernaut's face. The audience barely had time to blink before the horrific sound of bones snapping filled the stadium. The juggernaut screamed, but the human creature's claws pierced its skull like it was made of paper. The arena fell silent. 3 Earth creatures, 3 kills, in under a minute. The human commander stepped forward, arms crossed, as the arena officials scrambled to declare a winner. The remaining alien champions took a step back, their faces pale. The humans had brought their pets to battle, and the galaxy had just witnessed true terror. To be continued. The arena was still silent. The smell of blood hung in the air. Thousands of eyes were locked onto the battlefield, where the 3 Earth creatures stood among the corpses of the galaxy's deadliest war beasts. The alien champions, once proud and confident, now stared in disbelief. They had trained their war beasts for years, enhanced them with the best bioengineering the galaxy had to offer. And yet, the humans' so-called pets had torn through them in mere seconds. A deep voice broke the silence. This is impossible. The speaker was High Warlord Zephyr, a Cargathian general and a veteran of countless battles. His war beast, a hulking brute with razor-sharp tusks, had been the reigning champion of the tournament for the past 3 cycles. But now, Zathur's hands trembled as he pointed at the small black-furred Earth creature. That thing killed my war beast in one strike. It's unnatural. The human commander, Captain Rourke, smirked. Unnatural. No. Efficient. Absolutely. Zathur bared his fangs. What are these things? Captain Rourke gestured to the creatures, her voice calm but firm. This is Shadow. She pointed to the black-furred creature with piercing yellow eyes, one of Earth's most efficient ambush predators. It strikes fast, precise, and without mercy. Shadow let out a low, guttural growl, its ears twitching as if sensing the fear in the arena. She then motioned toward the feathered reptilian creature that had just ripped apart the Cargathian warhound. This is Talon. Fast, unpredictable, perfected by millions of years of evolution. Talon snapped its beak, its glowing eyes scanning the remaining alien champions as if already picking its next target. Finally, Rourke pointed at the largest of the 3, the one that had shattered the skull of the juggernaut war beast. And this is Fang, a force of raw muscle, speed, and intelligence. Fang let out a deep rumbling snarl, his powerful frame tensed as if ready to strike at any moment. The audience was frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Then, a voice boomed from the upper level of the arena. Humans have cheated. There is no way these tiny creatures could have defeated our champions. The voice belonged to Lord Vexlar, a high-ranking official from the Galactic Council. His species, the Siren, were known for their strict honor codes and unwavering belief in fairness. Captain Rourke chuckled. Cheated? How? We followed all your rules. You allowed creatures to battle. Ours were just better. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The officials whispered among themselves, unsure of how to respond. Zathur clenched his fists. Then prove it. If these beasts are truly superior, let them fight against all of our remaining war beasts at once. Gasps filled the arena. It was insane. No champion had ever fought against multiple war beasts at the same time. The fights were one-on-one, carefully controlled to avoid unnecessary slaughter. But now, the Cargathian was suggesting an all-out slaughter match. Captain Rourke didn't even hesitate. She smiled. Agreed. The crowd erupted into chaos. This was no longer a simple tournament. This was a battle for dominance. And the humans had just accepted the challenge. The arena was no longer just a battlefield. It had become a spectacle of madness. The decision was made. All of the remaining war beasts would be unleashed at once. The ground shook as massive gates opened around the arena. One by one, colossal creatures emerged, their eyes burning with aggression. A 6-legged titan beast, covered in armor-thick scales. A venomous serpent wolf, its fangs dripping with neurotoxin. A hulking war golem, standing 15 feet tall, its mechanical arms designed to crush bones like twigs. And many, many more. The alien spectators roared in excitement. They believed this was the end for the humans, so-called pets. Captain Rourke stood still, calm as ever. She turned to her Deathworlder creatures, Shadow, Talon, and Fang. Time to show them why Earth is feared. The three creatures didn't hesitate. The battle began. The Titan beast charged. Its armored body moved like a battering ram, aiming to crush Fang in a single blow. But Fang sidestepped at the last second, dodging with terrifying speed for its size. With a single, precise bite, Fang sank its teeth into the Titan's exposed leg joint. A sickening crunch followed. The Titan beast screamed in pain, stumbling as its leg snapped like a twig. The serpent wolf lunged. It coiled through the air, venom dripping from its fangs as it struck at Shadow. But Shadow was faster. In a blur, the black-furred predator leaped onto the snake's head, dodging its bite entirely. Then, with razor-sharp claws, Shadow sliced open the serpent wolf's throat. Blood sprayed onto the arena floor. The creature thrashed for a moment, then collapsed, lifeless. The crowd gasped in shock. The war golem raised its fists. It was the largest and strongest of them all. It stomped forward, its mechanical fists ready to pulverize anything in its path. It swung at Talon, the feathered reptilian Deathworlder. But Talon was unpredictable. Instead of dodging back, Talon rushed forward, using the golem's massive arm as a launch pad. Climbing up its limb, Talon reached the war golem's head in seconds, then struck. With a single, powerful stab, Talon drove its hooked talon directly into the golem's energy core. A spark, a flicker. Then, boom. The war golem collapsed in flames, its body completely disabled. The arena fell silent. One by one, the war beasts had been annihilated. And yet, the humans' creatures remained standing. Not a single scratch on them. High Warlord Zathar looked on in horror. Lord Vexlar's hands trembled. "Impossible," he whispered. Captain Rourke smirked. She knew what they were thinking. They had spent centuries believing that their war beasts were the strongest in the galaxy. But today, they had learned the truth. Earth's creatures weren't just strong. They were monsters among monsters. And they weren't even the worst Earth had to offer. To be continued. The arena was dead silent. The once cheering alien crowd now sat frozen, their eyes locked on the unstoppable beasts that had just decimated the strongest war creatures in the galaxy. But the worst was yet to come. The High Warlord's last gamble. High Warlord Zathar clenched his fists. His warriors, his champions, and his war beasts, all defeated. The Deathworlder pets stood tall, their fur soaked in blood, their claws and fangs gleaming under the arena lights. "This cannot be," Zathar roared, his voice filled with fury and disbelief. He turned to his elite gladiators, the deadliest alien warriors in the Empire. "Destroy them," he ordered. The 10 most feared fighters in the Empire leaped into the arena, each armed with weapons capable of cutting through steel. Their armor gleamed with energy shielding, their movements honed through decades of war. The crowd gasped in shock. No one had ever dared to send elite warriors against mere beasts. But everyone had forgotten one thing. These weren't just any creatures. They were Deathworlder pets, trained by humans. The command that changed everything. Captain Rourke stepped forward. Until now, she had stood silent, letting her beasts do all the fighting. But this was different. She raised one hand and gave a single command: heal. Instantly, Shadow, Talon, and Fang stopped moving. Their glowing eyes locked onto her, awaiting orders. The alien warriors hesitated. They had never seen war creatures obey a command so perfectly. Captain Rourke's voice was calm. "You wanted to see the power of Deathworlders. Fine, but it's not just our beasts you should fear." She stepped forward, her boots echoing in the silent arena. "It's us." Then she drew her blade. The fight begins. The alien warriors attacked at once. A four-armed Celicor soldier swung a plasma axe at her head. She ducked, her movements fluid, precise, effortless. In one swift motion, she slashed upward, her blade slicing through his exposed ribs. He collapsed, gasping for air. Another warrior charged from behind, a sonic spear aimed at her spine. Before he could strike, Shadow moved, a blur of black fur and fangs. Snap! The warrior screamed as Shadow bit through his leg, tearing it from his body. He fell to the ground, writhing in agony. Talon swooped down from above, its razor-sharp claws tearing through armor like it was paper. Fang barreled into two warriors at once, crushing bones with sheer brute force. One by one, the elite gladiators fell. The crowd could only watch in horror. A message to the galaxy. Within 2 minutes, it was over. The last surviving gladiator fell to his knees, his weapon shaking in his hands. His face was pale with terror. Captain Rourke pointed her blood-stained blade at his throat. Yield. The alien dropped his weapon. The arena erupted in chaos. Some aliens tried to flee, while others stood paralyzed in fear. The High Warlord himself looked like he had seen a nightmare come to life. Captain Rourke turned to the galaxy's most powerful leaders, watching from their luxurious seats above the arena. She spoke one sentence, her voice cold as ice. Never forget who the real monsters are. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they had just changed everything. The arena was a graveyard of fallen champions. The once mighty warriors of the Galactic Empire lay in pieces, defeated not by advanced weapons or strategic brilliance, but by Deathworlder pets. Yet, the battle was far from over. A desperate move. The High Warlord clenched his fists. His empire had crushed entire civilizations, enslaved worlds, and rewritten history through sheer domination. But today, his warriors had been humiliated. He refused to let this stand. With a single wave of his hand, he activated his final contingency. A mechanical rumbling filled the air as the arena shook. Massive doors slammed open, and from the underground vaults, the Empire's most terrifying creations emerged. The crowd gasped in horror. They had seen war beasts before, but not like these. The perfect killing machines. They stood 20 feet tall, their bodies an unnatural blend of flesh, metal, and plasma weaponry. The Empire's ultimate bioweapons, created for a single purpose: to wipe out Deathworlders. They had been genetically engineered using data from previous wars, designed to exploit the weaknesses of Deathworld species. Faster, smarter, stronger, relentless. A twisted combination of cybernetics and savage instincts. Their bodies were covered in plasma-resistant armor, their claws capable of slicing through starship hulls. Even the bravest warriors would not dare to face them. The High Warlord finally smirked. Let's see how your beasts handle these, human. The Deathworlder pets don't retreat. Captain Rourke remained unfazed. Her creatures stood calm, unshaken by the monsters before them. The alien audience had expected the Deathworlder pets to flee, to hesitate. Instead, they did something no one expected. They grinned. Shadow, the stealth predator, lowered his body, his tail flicking in anticipation. Talon, the winged hunter, flexed his razor-sharp talons, eyes locked on his new prey. Fang, the brutal enforcer, stomped forward, his growl vibrating through the arena. The Deathworlder pets weren't afraid. They were excited. The battle had just begun. The first kill. One of the bioweapons lunged at Shadow, moving at an impossible speed. But speed meant nothing against Shadow. At the last second, he vanished, blending into the surroundings like a phantom. The monstrous creature looked around wildly confused. Then, a blur of black fur and flashing fangs erupted from the shadows. With a single bone-crushing bite, Shadow ripped out the creature's throat. The entire stadium froze. The Empire's greatest weapon had been silenced in a single strike. The High Warlord's smirk vanished. No mercy. Talon took to the skies, his wings a blur as he dove straight toward another bioweapon. The creature fired its plasma cannons, filling the air with energy blasts. But Talon was too fast. With an unpredictable spin, he dodged the shots and landed right on the creature's back. His claws pierced through cybernetic plating. With a single merciless swipe, he decapitated it. Blood and oil splattered onto the sand. Another war beast was gone. The final blow. The last bioweapon, twice the size of the others, let out a roar of pure rage. It charged at Fang, its mechanical limbs tearing through the ground. Fang did not move. He stood his ground as the massive war beast rushed toward him, claws raised for a final, devastating strike. And then, Fang caught its arm. The entire arena shook as Fang lifted the beast off the ground. The crowd gasped in disbelief. With a mighty roar, Fang snapped its arm like a twig. The war beast screeched in agony, but before it could reach, Fang's jaws clamped down on its skull. One crack, and the last of the Empire's greatest weapons collapsed. The warlord's nightmare. The battlefield was silent. All around, the remains of the Empire's war beasts lay in pieces. The High Warlord's breathing quickened. "No, this is impossible," he muttered. He turned to Captain Rourke, expecting to see a smug expression. Instead, he saw something worse. She wasn't gloating. She wasn't mocking him. She was bored. As if this wasn't even a challenge, the High Warlord finally understood. This wasn't a victory. It was a warning. The Deathworlders had unleashed their pets. And now, the galaxy would never be the same again. The arena was still. The bodies of the Empire's greatest war beasts lay broken, scattered like discarded weapons. The scent of burning flesh and cracked metal filled the air. But the Deathworlder pets stood tall, unshaken, undefeated. The alien crowd could not believe what they had witnessed. The High Warlord could barely process it. His ultimate creations, designed to wipe out Deathworlders, had been ripped apart like mere playthings. And the worst part, the Deathworlder pets didn't even look tired. The Empire's last gambit. The High Warlord clenched his fists, his claws digging into his palms. He would not accept this humiliation. He turned to his advisors, his voice a venomous growl. "Release it." The alien advisors flinched. "But, Supreme Warlord," one of them stammered. "The Council has forbidden." "I don't care," the Warlord roared, his eyes filled with rage and desperation. "If we lose here, our empire will never recover. Release it." The advisors hesitated for a moment before bowing. A series of red warning lights flashed across the arena. A metallic voice echoed through the Colosseum. "Warning. Unauthorized entity VLEASE in Piro Juriest." The entire stadium shook. A massive vault door at the edge of the arena hissed open. Cold mist spilled out, swirling over the sand. Then, a shadow moved inside the darkness. A creature born from nightmares. The creature stepped forward. It was twice the size of the previous war beasts, its body covered in living metal that constantly shifted like a swarm of nanites. Its claws were longer than swords, its eyes a deep crimson, glowing with something unnatural. A sickening aura spread through the air, a presence that made even the most battle-hardened warriors freeze. This was not just a war beast. This was a weapon of extinction, an ancient monster the Empire had sealed away, too dangerous to control, too powerful to destroy. They had built it using the DNA of dead gods. And now, it was awake. Fear spreads through the arena. Even the alien audience, who had been cheering moments ago, fell into anxious silence. This was not entertainment anymore. This was madness. Even Shadow, Talon, and Fang, who had easily destroyed the Empire's previous war beasts, stood tense, their instincts screaming a single message. This thing is different. Captain Rourke's fingers tightened on the railing of her observation deck. Her pets had faced monsters before, But this thing was wrong. It didn't just radiate strength, it radiated hatred. A hatred for all living things. The High Warlord grinned. Let's see how your pets handle a creature that should never have existed. The monster attacks. The moment the final command was given, the beast moved, and it moved fast. Faster than anything they had ever seen. Shadow barely had time to dodge as razor-sharp tendrils shot toward him, slicing through the air with a sickening screech. Talon tried to take flight, but the creature anticipated it, whipping a spiked tail upward, nearly skewering him midair. Fang roared in charge, his massive body crashing against the creature like a wrecking ball. But the monster didn't even budge. Instead, its shifting metal absorbed the impact, bending like liquid before snapping back into solid form. And then, it hit back. A single, brutal swipe of its claws sent Fang flying across the arena. The ground cracked where he landed. For the first time in the battle, one of the Deathworlder pets staggered. The audience gasped. Was this it? Had they finally found a monster that could kill Deathworlder pets? The Deathworlder's response. Fang growled, pushing himself back to his feet. His legs trembled for a moment, but his eyes burned with rage. Shadow and Talon regrouped beside him, silent but ready. They had just learned an important lesson. This wasn't an enemy they could toy with. This was a true fight. A predator. An equal. Captain Rourke's voice echoed through their earpieces. Enough playing around. Tear it apart. The three beasts grinned. Their eyes flashed. And then, they attacked. Faster than before. Smarter. More savage. The galaxy's most terrifying moment. Shadow disappeared into the darkness, his movements now untraceable even to the creature's advanced senses. Talon soared upward, higher than ever before, using the lights of the arena to blind the monster below. Fang charged straight ahead, but this time, it wasn't reckless. It was a distraction. The creature lashed out, aiming to finish Fang in a single strike. But in that split second, Shadow appeared from nowhere, his fangs sinking deep into the monster's exposed flank. At the same time, Talon descended like a meteor, his razor-sharp claws slicing through the monster's tendrils, severing them completely. Fang reached the creature's chest and bit down, hard. The High Warlord could only watch in horror. His ultimate weapon, his empire's last hope, was dying. Shadow, Talon, and Fang tore into the creature with surgical precision, breaking through its shifting metal armor, cutting through its flesh, and ripping apart its monstrous body. The death scream that followed was inhuman, a sound so terrible that even the most hardened warriors in the audience shrank back in fear. The Empire's greatest beast, the abomination built to destroy Deathworlders, had fallen, and the Deathworlder pets stood victorious. The silence before the storm. For the first time since the Empire's rise, the arena was silent. No cheers, no jeers, no roars of approval, only fear. Even the High Warlord's elite guards, warriors who had never backed down from battle, trembled as they watched the Deathworlder pets stand over the remains of their greatest weapon. The truth was undeniable now. This was not a battle. This was a warning. A message carved in blood and steel. Deathworlders were not to be challenged. Not now. Not ever. The High Warlord's last mistake. The High Warlord staggered backward, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He turned to his guards, his voice shaking. Kill them. The guards hesitated. The Warlord snarled, baring his teeth. I say I'd. A shadow moved. The Warlord barely had time to react before something massive crashed into his throne, crushing the massive stone structure like paper. It was Fang. The great beast snarled, his massive fangs dripping with the blood of the Empire's last hope. And his eyes. His eyes were locked onto the Warlord. A predator looking at prey. The High Warlord froze. Fang took a single step forward, The ground trembled beneath him. And in that moment, the Empire's ruler did something no one had ever seen before. He ran. The fall of the arena. The crowd erupted into chaos. Guards shouted orders. Soldiers pushed forward. The audience stampeded for the exits. But it was too late, because Talon took to the sky, his razor-sharp wings slicing through the arena's support beams like they were nothing. Shadow vanished, and before the soldiers could even raise their weapons, he was already among them, cutting them down one by one. Fang roared, a deep, earth-shaking sound that made the arena walls crack. The Empire's greatest Colosseum, the place where they had once celebrated their power, was now falling apart. And at the center of it all, the Deathworlder pets stood, untouched, as the Empire crumbled around them. A galaxy forever changed. Captain Rourke stood aboard her ship, watching the chaos unfold from orbit. Her pets had sent their message loud and clear. The galaxy had always feared Deathworlders. But now they understood why. With a final smirk, she turned to her crew. "Let's go home." The ship's engines roared to life, and in the blink of an eye, the Deathworlders were gone, and the galaxy would never be the same again.